All right, let's talk about the questionable calls in the Super Bowl and I think more accurately, the incorrect calls in the Super Bowl. I'm hearing a lot of talk about the bad calls, and listen, bad calls suck, but they do happen. It's a fast sport. There's always going to be some missed calls. Even in sports that have a lot of replay reviews and stuff, there still always is controversy. You never get it exactly right. So to some degree, it's going to happen, although even with all that said, this was an egregiously bad game. The question, though, is who did it hurt and who did it help? Because I think a lot of people kind of said, there was one brutal call for the Rams, there was one brutal call for the Bengals. It kind of all evens out. And, okay, I don't hate that line of thinking. I think it's fair to say, like, the Bengals can't necessarily, like, say the refs are the reason they lost or anything. But still, you would have liked to see those bad calls not being made. And I kind of wanted to just go back, look at all of the calls that I consider the wrong call, and then say how many points did that cost using point expectancy. So I figured that could be a fun exercise to see who actually got the bigger benefit due to the refs. So let's just get into the bad calls. Let's start off with this play. And again, just to reiterate the point of this exercise, it's who got screwed the most by the refs. So the way we're using this is point expectancy. How much expected points would you get if the call was called correctly? And then how many expected points did you actually get from that call? So for example, this play, as I paused it right here, you can clearly see Aaron Donald is lined up offsides on this 4th down and 1. Since he's offsides, the Bengals should have gotten an extra 5 yards here, and they should have been able to, pick up the 1st down, and they would have had good field position. Instead, the Rams get the ball, and they're in good field position. Because, of course, as you remember, Burrow would take the snap, he would throw an incomplete pass right there. So that happened, and the difference is actually pretty significant from that being called correctly or incorrectly. It's a 4th down and 1, so it affects possession, according to point expectancy. And the point expectancy chart I'm using is a bit out of date. It's from 2015. I did this, back when I was blogging like 3-4 years ago. That's what I used, so it's certainly out of date, but it's all I have available. So according to this chart, it would be a 4.16 point difference in the Rams' favor, because you don't get an extra possession this way. You were going to get a possession as soon as the Bengals were done on offense regardless, but the Bengals lose their possession, so there's some value there. Also, you get added value from the field position that the Rams got, as opposed to if it was going to be at the 25-yard line or around that area. Also, this play now, so this would happen not too long after, where you're going to see that there was a hold on Jalen Ramsey. I thought he grabbed the jersey. Usually that gets called holding. And so for me, if I'm the ref, I would have called that. If I'm a perfect ref that can see everything, I would have thrown the flag there. And so that's another big play. That was 3rd down and goal. They had to settle for a field goal, whereas had it been a flag, then it's going to be pass interference because it's holding on a play where T. Higgins was targeted, meaning that for Jalen Ramsey and for the Rams, they would have then been looking at a 1st and goal at the 1-yard line. The difference in point expectancy there is 2.4 points. So we're already at 6.5 points in the Rams' favor from missed calls from the refs. Of course, a lot of that would go back the other way with this play. This is the one that really everyone paid attention to. It just wasn't a penalty. I mean, it was a penalty and it wasn't called, which is just absurd. T. Higgins throws Ramsey to the ground. Very surprised that didn't get called, but it didn't get called. That's a 5.51 swing in Cincinnati's favor right there, because it would have been 1st and 20 then at their own 15. Instead, it's a touchdown, so that's obviously a huge difference. Although worth noting, even at this point, we still do have a slight edge in the Rams' favor in terms of who's been helped out the most by the referees. This play is an important play to talk about. I don't see many people mentioning it. I was shocked this wasn't called at the time because we saw it on the broadcast, but it looks like there's holding right there. But as you see, Henderson does not get the flag there, even though it seemed like he definitely got held, and that should have been a pass interference, which should have, brought you closer to the goal line, but it was not called. The offensive linemen were screaming for a flag. Matthew Stafford was screaming for the flag, and I have a theory that this is why the next play you got a weak hold. Maybe it was kind of a makeup call to some degree, or maybe they were being a little bit more aware of those holdings now since they missed one here. But this should have been a hold, in my opinion, which means that it would be 1.78 points in Cincinnati's favor right here, because now it's a 3rd down and goal. It would have been a 1st and goal. Of course, on that 3rd and goal, we would then see just the wrong call get made right here, where you're going to see that it looked like a hold, so I can see why the ref called it. I really can. Linebacker gets his hand on Cooper Kupp's chest area, but he doesn't hold. You're allowed to put your hand there. If you don't hold on to it, that's not going to get called. But Cooper Kupp also kind of slowed down to get the football, and I think that it was kind of just the wrong place, wrong time type of thing for the Bengals. But still, in my opinion, that's not the correct call. If it was called the other way, that's a 2.64 swing. But to be clear, what I mean by if it was called the other way means if it was called perfectly, which would not mean that it was 4th down and goal, because there was a false start prior to this play. So what actually should have happened on this play is that there should have been a false start, and it should have then been 3rd and goal at the 13 instead of what actually ended up happening, which was 1st and goal at the 4. So that's where the 2.64 points comes from. It would have been a little bit more had that just been ruled incomplete, but that was, if the whole exercise is if the game was called perfectly. If it was called perfectly, it would have been a false start there. And also, final one to talk about, look at the linebacker over the middle on Tyler Boyd. You're going to see kind of some contact get made right there. It is not called a hold. I've seen some people on Twitter argue this is. I'm going to slow it down and show it a bit zoomed in. And again, to me, this does kind of look like if I'm going to count the 3rd and goal as not a hold, I think I also can't count this as a hold. Again, the arm is there. The arm is in position to hold, but I don't see him actually hold there. So I am not including this as a missed call. This was not called a penalty on the field. I am not calling it a penalty, but I've heard people complain about it. It was 4th down and 1. This was that, the final play of, the Bengals season, really, other than the kneel down. So some people could consider this a penalty. I am not including it into the chart, though. That's not what I did. But you could consider doing it that way. If it was called, that's another 2.07 points in Cincinnati's favor. But again, I'm going to officially say that I do not consider that a missed call, but that's my opinion, and it certainly is one that reasonable minds can differ. But I feel like it's very similar to the one that was called on the 3rd down and goal, and I'm also saying that one shouldn't have been called. So I'm at least being consistent with how I feel about it. Also, just doing some editing in real time here, 2.88 points was the actual value, not 2 points. So there you go. So the overall verdict is that there actually was an advantage for the Rams. It was a slight advantage, but if you count all these up, there was a 1.91 advantage for the Rams. So if you include the last play I showed you, if you think that should have been a hold, then the difference would actually be over 3 points, which was the difference in this football game. But if you do not include that, then the difference is less than 3 points, which is not the difference in the football game. And of course, that's not exactly how it works, right? A million things change. But, to me, it's interesting. It was pretty close to even in terms of how badly these bad calls affected each team, in my opinion, from what I saw. Might have missed a bad call here or there. That's possible. But yeah, at the end of the day, we always talk about how can these things be done better. I do find it a little bit weird. Like, I've always kind of been a believer in just have somebody watching the game. Just have a ref who is watching the game, give them like all the camera angles so they can look at everything, and just have a few refs in there if you want to. Especially it's the Super Bowl, right? You have all of America watching. Like, just get a room where there's cameras on everybody. All the refs are watching. They can look at the replays, and just someone in that room has a Bluetooth headset that can connect to one of the referees on the field. If they call something, you can just throw a green flag if you want, so we know which one is where it's coming from. You throw the flag and then say, yep, they called this person 57 holding, blah blah blah. It seems like that would be easier. Or you could also sit here and say, hey, I just saw the replay, that wasn't a flag, pick it up. Like, it wouldn't slow the game down in any way, but you would also get the calls more correct. I don't get why we haven't really tried something like that. It seems like, there was the Sky Judge, and there still is a Sky Judge now, but like, it's only for certain calls. I don't know why you don't just make it for everything. That's my opinion on it. But what I've always said about this stuff is luck is a part of football. We play with an oblong-shaped ball, right? So there's always going to be a factor of luck. Sometimes the ball bounces a certain way, and because of that, one team gets possession. Like, that is a factor in football. Well, the referee calls are also a part of that. Now, we should try and fix that. We shouldn't just accept that there is, that element of luck. We should try to get as little element of luck possible with this stuff. But as long as the luck element is there, you have to just accept the fact that sometimes you're going to get the calls, sometimes you don't, and you can only control what you can control. Even if you believe that these calls really affected the Bengals' the Rams deserved to win the Super Bowl. They took advantage of what they could. They did what they had to do, and they won the Super Bowl. So that's my thought on it. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.